You ever stop and think about the economics of just making dinner or your commute? I mean, every single day, we're all making hundreds of little choices about our time and our money. Well, it turns out those tiny personal decisions are actually part of this massive, hidden economic story that stretches across the entire globe. And today, we're going to uncover it, piece by piece. So here's the plan. We're going to start by looking at your home as a tiny factory. Yeah, you heard me. Then, we'll zoom out to a really puzzling global pattern in the workforce. We'll dig into the hidden forces behind it, uncover a massive, and I mean massive, invisible economy, and then wrap it all up with a big question about the future of work itself. All right, first up, the home as a factory. We're about to completely reframe how you think about all that stuff you do at home, and we're starting right in the kitchen. So let me ask you, is your kitchen a factory? I know, it sounds a little weird, but according to one really powerful economic theory, the answer is a big, loud yes. To get why, we need to shift our thinking about what's actually being produced in your home. This all comes from a Nobel Prize-winning idea by an economist named Gary Becker. It's called the household production model. And what he argued was that we don't get satisfaction, what economists call utility, just from buying things. A bag of flour sitting on your counter doesn't really do anything for you. The real value, the real satisfaction, comes from what you produce with it. Things like a meal, a clean house, or even just a good night's rest. Okay, let's break this down with a family dinner. Your inputs, that's the groceries you bought, the time you're spending, and your awesome cooking skills. The production, that's the actual work, the chopping, the mixing, the cooking. And the output, a fantastic meal that gives you real value and satisfaction. See, your kitchen isn't just a place where you consume things, it's a little factory where you produce them. And this leads to a really crucial trade-off we all make. You could make a cake from scratch, right? That's time intensive. Or you could just buy one from the bakery, which is expenditure intensive. Your choice really comes down to the opportunity cost of your time. If you can earn more money in an hour at your job than it costs to buy that cake, well, it makes perfect economic sense to just buy it. This one simple calculation repeated millions of times by millions of people is what literally fueled the rise of the entire convenience economy. Okay, so now let's take that idea, the value of our time, and blow it up to a global scale. We are zooming out of the kitchen and looking at a huge macroeconomic puzzle that has shaped the lives of women all over the world for decades. It's called the U-shaped hypothesis, and the theory goes like this. As a country develops, the number of women in the formal workforce first goes down, and then it goes back up, creating this really distinct U-shape on a graph. So let's see what the data actually says. And boom, there it is. This is that theory in action. This chart shows what happened in high-income countries. Over on the left, in the early stages of development, participation is pretty high. But then, as industrialization kicks in, it drops, hitting the very bottom of that U. Then, as those economies shift into services and knowledge work, it climbs right back up again. Classic U-shape. But here's where it gets really interesting. On the left, for upper-middle-income countries, you see a nice, strong recovery. That U-shape is there. But now look at the chart on the right for low-income countries. The recovery is way flatter. For some, it's almost not there at all. And that tells us something super important. Just growing the economy isn't enough to guarantee women will join the workforce. Something else is going on. So that's the big question for our third section. What is going on here? What are these hidden forces that are bending the curve or keeping it flat? What's changing that fundamental economic calculation about the value of a woman's time? Well, research points to 5 major drivers that can really push that curve upwards. We're talking about stuff like labor-saving technology, control over family size, helpful government policies like childcare, shifting social norms, and, of course, access to education. Let's just take technology for a second because this timeline is incredible. Back in 1900, the average American household spent 58 hours a week on housework. 58! Then came what some have called the engines of liberation, washing machines, vacuums, all that good stuff. By 1975, that number had dropped to just 18 hours. That freed up a mind-boggling amount of time, which made it possible for millions of women to even consider entering the paid labor market. But technology and policies aren't the whole story. This quote right here gets to the heart of another really powerful barrier: social norms. If a culture believes that when jobs are scarce, men have more of a right to them, well, that belief is going to shape reality no matter how the economy is doing or how educated a woman is. It's a huge force keeping that U-curve flat. And all of this brings us to what is maybe the most critical and most overlooked piece of this entire economic puzzle: all the uncounted work that holds everything else up. Get this. On a global scale, women do 4 times more unpaid care work than men. Just let that number sink in for a second. 4 times. This isn't just a small gap, it's a massive, structural difference in how we spend our most valuable resource, our time. This chart gives us a specific example from the Middle East and North Africa region. On average, women there are spending over 5 hours a day on unpaid care work, and men? Less than 1 hour. You can immediately see how that kind of disparity directly affects a woman's ability to take on a full-time, formal job. There just aren't enough hours in the day. And here's the real kicker. All of this essential work, raising kids, taking care of elderly parents, managing a home, it's economically invisible. It doesn't show up in GDP. It's not in the official employment stats. We are basically trying to measure our economy while completely ignoring a huge chunk of it. And that has some really profound consequences for how we make policy and even how we define progress. Okay, let's bring this all home. We've seen how the home can be a factory, how women's work follows this strange U-shaped path, and how this massive invisible economy of unpaid labor is shaping everything. And it all leads us to one final really big question. If time truly has economic value, and everything we've looked at today says that it absolutely does, then how should we value all the work that gets done, both the paid and the unpaid? Answering that question, well, it doesn't just change how we look at the global economy, it changes how we see the value of our own day.